The sleep scientist beneath the canopy of time. Chapter 1, The Rain That Whispers. The rainforest was not on any modern map. Its coordinates had been passed down through forgotten journals, scrawled in faded ink by explorers who claimed the jungle hummed with secrets. Dr. Elara Miles, a quiet but brilliant chronobiologist, wasn't one to chase myths, until a peculiar magnetic anomaly brought her research satellite to a halt, right over this stretch of endless green. She arrived just before dusk. The trees towered like cathedral pillars, wrapped in vines and shimmering spores that floated like fireflies. Each step Elara took on the damp forest floor made the earth exhale with warmth and the soft smell of moss. Her boots sank slightly into the soil, as though the ground itself was remembering every footstep taken before. Her equipment beeped. Strange readings. Pulses. Signals. And then the rain began, not hard or cold, but soft and warm, like mist woven with lullabies. It didn't fall from above. It rose gently, as if the earth was sighing. The drops clung to her coat like stardust. As she lifted her scanner, the readings spiked. Just ahead, beneath a canopy of bioluminescent vines, stood something impossible, an arch of obsidian stone, humming with a gentle golden glow. Circular and ancient, with runes spiraling inward like a fingerprint. It was a gateway. She stepped closer. The rain whispered louder. And the moment her fingers brushed the arch's edge, the world shimmered. The trees around her began to blur, shifting into softer, older versions of themselves. The air thickened with a scent like pine and honey. And then, there it was. The distant, echoing cry of something vast. Something alive. A dinosaur. Elara's eyes widened, and her heart slowed into a gentle rhythm. She wasn't just studying time anymore. She was inside it. The pale horizon. Elara didn't move for several moments. She stood beneath the arch, one hand still resting against its warm stone, her breath soft and slow as the forest shifted around her. The air had changed, sweeter, more vibrant, laced with a scent she couldn't place. Her ears adjusted, filtering out the gentle hum of the portal behind her to focus on the world that now stretched ahead. The rainforest had grown wilder. Trees were broader, older, reaching skyward like ancient sentinels. Ferns the size of her outstretched arms fanned across the path, and the ground was littered with amber-colored spores that glowed faintly in the fading light. Then she saw it. Across the clearing, grazing in silence beneath a slant of golden sunlight, was a herd of hadrosaurs. Their skin was a mosaic of muted greens and bronze stripes, blending seamlessly with the foliage. They moved slowly, rhythmically, like the forest's heartbeat. Elara crouched, heart thudding. Her equipment was still recording, though she knew no signal would transmit beyond the arch. This wasn't a place for modern devices. It was memory. A living echo. Suddenly, one of the hadrosaurs lifted its head and looked straight at her. It didn't flee. Instead, it stared, as though it recognized her. Elara remained still, the thick leaves cradling her as if she belonged here. The creature took a slow step forward. Then another. It stopped just a few meters away. Its eyes were deep and dark, filled with an uncanny softness. A low, musical sound escaped its throat, a call, not of fear, but of welcome. Elara felt it not just in her ears, but in her bones. The sound resonated with something ancient inside her. The fabric of time here wasn't torn, it was braided, carefully knotted through presence and memory. She was not intruding. She was expected. Just then, the ground trembled, slightly. The hadrosaur turned its head sharply. A shadow passed overhead. Enormous wings cut through the treetops. Elara ducked instinctively as a massive Quetzalcoatl soared across the sky, casting long shadows across the canopy. Time was not still here. It pulsed. She had crossed not just into the past, but into a world alive with mystery and memory, where each leaf, each echo, was a thread in the story of life. And she was about to follow it deeper. The nesting grounds. Elara followed the hadrosaur's gentle retreat, her steps careful not to snap a twig or disturb the forest's rhythm. The massive creature lumbered into a narrow pass between thickly entwined trees, and beyond it, the undergrowth opened into a sunlit basin. It was breathtaking. Nestled in the heart of the basin was a sprawling nesting ground, wide, shallow craters lined with leaves, moss, and polished pebbles. Dozens of hadrosaurs moved slowly and silently among the nests, nudging eggs with their snouts or standing guard in stoic stillness. A few calves, no taller than Elara's chest, stumbled clumsily between the legs of their elders, squeaking out soft, flute-like cries. Elara lowered herself behind a boulder at the ridge of the basin, peeking through a curtain of moss. She whispered into her recorder, though she knew it was only for herself now. Evidence of communal nesting behavior, herd support structure, juveniles present, they sing to their young. Indeed, they did. Soft, melodious hums passed between mothers and calves, reverberating gently across the basin. The sound was oddly familiar, not just in melody, but in feeling. It reminded her of lullabies her grandmother once sang beneath the stars. The hadrosaurs were not just animals. They were caretakers. Musicians of time. But something disrupted the harmony. A shrill cry tore through the air. Heads turned. Birds, strange, reptilian things with long feathered tails, erupted from the trees. The hadrosaurs shifted uneasily. Elara's breath caught as she scanned the tree line. There it was. A figure, low and fast, moved along the edge of the basin. Its head was sleek, its snout narrow. A pack of dromaeosaurs, raptor-like predators, emerged from the shadows, creeping toward the vulnerable nests. Elara's instincts screamed for silence, stillness. But her heart ached as she watched the herd freeze, unsure, calves braying in alarm. Then, without warning, one of the elder hadrosaurs surged forward. Trumpeting a deep, resonant cry, it charged, tail swinging with the weight of a battering ram. The ground shook beneath its steps. The raptors hesitated. Another adult followed. Then two more. Within moments, a wall of herbivores had formed, a barrier of muscle, resolve, and thunderous defiance. The dromaeosaurs, realizing they'd been outmatched, shrieked and scattered into the underbrush. Elara exhaled. She hadn't realized she was crying until a tear dropped to her journal. These creatures, they weren't just survivors. They were protectors. She scribbled a final note in the fading light. The past is not primitive. It's profound. But deep in her chest, a question formed: how long could this delicate harmony last? And what had brought her here, really? Because somewhere in the trees, something had started watching her too. Shadows on the horizon. The warmth of the nesting ground faded as twilight descended over the forest. The golden canopy dimmed, shifting into a palette of indigo and deep green. Crickets, or what Elara assumed were crickets, began their rhythmic song. The hadrosaurs settled again, the tension of the raptor attack slowly dissolving into evening calm. But Elara couldn't shake the feeling that something else had changed. Her hand drifted to her belt, where a small tracker beacon pulsed quietly, a blinking red dot that offered no connection. No signal. No rescue. Her journey through the temporal fold, whatever had brought her here, had also left her untethered from time itself. Still, she wasn't entirely alone. From her hidden perch, Elara watched the herd long into the night. The adult hadrosaurs formed a loose circle around the youngest, their bodies creating a living wall of safety. And through the quiet, she noticed something extraordinary: tiny lights shimmered across their skin. Not bioluminescence. Something else. As moonlight filtered through the trees, Elara pulled out her scope. The scales of the hadrosaurs shimmered like ancient solar panels, absorbing light, storing it, glowing faintly from within. a primitive photosynthetic adaptation? Or a long-lost biological trait? She couldn't be sure. But it hinted at something beyond evolution. A forgotten intelligence. A memory of light. Then, just beyond the basin, a flicker. Not light from an animal. Not the dancing of fireflies or moonlit dew. This was sharp. Artificial. She raised her scope again. A silhouette moved through the trees. Tall. Upright. Bipedal. But it wasn't a dinosaur. It was human. No. It was wearing a suit. Elara's pulse quickened. She activated her recorder. Unknown figure spotted. Bipedal. Appears humanoid. Technological gear. Direction, Northwest Ridge. Time, 3:41. The figure paused, just briefly, and turned its head toward her as if it had heard. As if it already knew she was watching. Then it vanished into the trees. Elara's heart pounded in her chest. Someone else was here. Not just an ancient creature from the past. Not just nature. A sentient traveler. But who were they? And what did they want in this lost world of giants? The silence of the forest returned, but now it carried a weight. Elara had come seeking the secrets of the past. But the past was watching her back. The suit in the shadows. Elara didn't sleep that night. Curled beneath the root tangle of a massive fern tree, with her cloak pulled tightly around her, she listened to the subtle rhythms of the prehistoric forest. Leaves rustled softly in the wind, the occasional distant hoot of some ancient creature echoed overhead, but none of it reached her like it had before. Her thoughts were frozen on the figure in the trees. The suit. The humanoid shape. The way it turned its head, as if it had seen her, recognized her. The scope feed ran on loop. In her mind. The posture had been too perfect, too smooth to be a dinosaur mimic. And the glow, the faint, cold blue flicker at the edge of its form, reminded her of the tech used only in deep field missions. It was Earth-made, or something very close to it. But this place was supposed to be lost. The next morning, she followed the trail. The northwest ridge was a steep climb, a curtain of tangled vines and moss-covered stone. Her boots slipped once, then twice, on wet lichen, but she pressed on, replaying her night vision footage frame by frame with every stop. Finally, she reached a clearing. And there, embedded into the slope of a cliffside, almost perfectly camouflaged by vines and shadows, was a structure. Not ruins. Not stone. A pod. Metallic. Smooth. Partially buried in rockfall. Panels scuffed, symbols etched into its hull, ones she didn't recognize. Her heart skipped. It wasn't her pod, nor anything from the Lunar Research Coalition. She approached slowly, brushing moss from the edge of the doorway. There was a handprint reader. Worn, but still glowing. Elara reached for her toolkit, but as she did, she caught sight of something deeper within the shadows, movement. A shimmer. A reflection. And then, from the far side of the pod, the figure stepped into view. Fully suited. Helmet on. Silent. Elara didn't move. The figure tilted its head, then raised its arm. Not threatening. Not a weapon. Instead, projecting. A holographic symbol hovered in the air between them, a slow-spinning image of a double helix, fracturing, mending, splitting again, then surrounded by rings of stars. Planetary coordinates. And just beneath the display, a single word appeared. Observe. Then, as suddenly as it had come, the projection vanished. The figure turned and stepped back into the forest, leaving only the scent of ozone in its wake. Elara stood motionless, breath shallow, her mind racing. Who were they? What were they observing? And why here, in Earth's distant past? A deeper story was buried beneath the forest. One Elara had only just begun to unearth. Echoes in the earth. The forest was never truly silent. Even when Elara paused at the cliffside, scanning the now dark handprint panel of the mysterious pod, the world around her whispered. Insects droned in the heat. Leaves trembled beneath the passing of wind, or creatures unseen. A rhythmic knocking echoed faintly from the canopy, like a woodpecker that never tired. But it wasn't the sounds of the forest that set Elara's heart on edge. It was the memory of the word that shimmered in the air before her: observe. She spent the day examining the pod, careful not to disturb the surrounding stone or moss. Its shape was aerodynamic, wedge-like at the nose, with segmented metallic plating that bore no resemblance to modern Earth shuttles. It had no thrusters, no landing gear, no insignia. Only the smooth outline of technology lost, or hidden, from history. And she wasn't alone in finding it. That evening, while reviewing her data feed, Elara noticed a distortion in the sound spectrum, ultrasonic pulses, barely detectable. Triangulating their source led her to a nearby thicket of cycads and stone pillars, relics of some prehistoric upheaval. But when she parted the ferns, she didn't find an animal. She found another device. It was half buried in mud and roots, shaped like a crystalline orb set inside a three-pronged frame. Pulsing gently with pale light, it emitted a pattern of clicks, pulses, and, she realized, tones arranged in prime numbers. A message. A signature. Possibly a beacon. As she scanned it, the readings spiked. The orb's surface shimmered like rippling water, and for a split second, Elara saw something impossible, a view of the Earth from above. Not current Earth. Ancient Earth. Oceans brighter. Continents younger. Swarms of flying reptiles crossing the skies. And, hovering in low orbit, a massive structure, barely visible, like a cloak of mirrored glass wrapping the curve of the atmosphere. The signal cut off. She fell backward into the damp soil, heart pounding. Someone, or something, was not just observing the dinosaurs. They were orbiting Earth during their age. Watching. Recording. Waiting. Elara whispered aloud to herself, "This isn't just a research mission anymore." Suddenly, the forest behind her stirred, twigs cracking, brush parting. She froze. A low growl curled out from the shadows. Not mechanical. Not human. Something else had found her. And it wasn't here to observe. The predator's trail. The growl was guttural, wet and primal. Elara's breath hitched as she turned her head slowly. Just beyond the veil of ferns, two glimmering eyes reflected the bioluminescence of the orb still glowing softly behind her. They were low to the ground. Watching. Calculating. She knew she had moments. Instinct surged. She snatched the orb and stuffed it into her side pack, then sprang up and sprinted toward the denser part of the jungle. Weaving between massive trunks and ducking under hanging vines. Behind her, heavy steps crashed through undergrowth, gaining on her with terrifying speed. A predator. Likely a dromaeosaur, one of the raptor kin. Not the towering tyrannosaurs people imagined when thinking of prehistoric hunters. This one would be faster. Smarter. Deadlier. And Elara? She had no weapon. No tranquilizer. Only tech. And her mind. She activated her comms, breath ragged. "Enzo, if you read me, initiate emergency beacon. I've made contact, both mechanical and biological." Silence. Then static. The trees blurred as she ran, and just as her boots slipped on a bed of wet leaves, a snarl burst to her right. She flung herself sideways and crashed down a steep embankment, tumbling through brambles and loose soil. She landed hard at the bottom of a shallow ravine, knees scraped, lip bleeding. No time to feel it. The forest fell deathly quiet. Then, she heard it. Click click. Sniff. Click. Footsteps above. The raptor was tracking her, pacing along the edge of the ravine, cautious but confident. It wasn't just hunting, it was testing her. As if it understood she was something unfamiliar. Elara reached into her pack, pulled out a temporal flare, a gadget that scrambled magnetic and sensory readings for a brief burst, and launched it behind her. A sharp whine, then a brilliant flash. The raptor shrieked, startled, thrown off, and Elara used the moment to scramble deeper into the ravine, ducking into a tangle of roots and moss-covered rock. There, in the dim stillness, she noticed something she hadn't expected. Markings. Engraved into the wall of the ravine, behind the sheltering roots, were symbols, clearly artificial. Spirals, star clusters, and a shape resembling the pod from earlier. But this wall wasn't modern. It was ancient. Prehistoric. Someone had carved these millions of years ago. The raptor shrieked again, now somewhere behind her. But Elara didn't move. She touched the carvings, heart racing with something other than fear now, wonder. Who was here before? And what were they warning her about? The answers weren't just buried in fossils. They were etched into time itself. The wall of echoes. Elara traced the ancient carvings with trembling fingers, her heart still racing from the close encounter with the raptor. The etchings were astonishingly precise, not the work of primitive hands, but of something deliberate, intelligent. And unmistakably, familiar. One of the spirals looked almost identical to the quantum time signature embedded in her sleep pod's navigation code. "This can't be," she whispered. She glanced behind. The forest above remained eerily quiet. Either the raptor had retreated, or it was waiting. But her curiosity now outweighed her fear. The wall before her was more than just markings, it was a chronographic record, a stone library of events folded into the bark-like texture of ancient rock. Each layer of symbols seemed to pulse faintly in the orb's glow, as if reacting to her presence. Elara activated her palm scanner and ran it across the stone. The scanner vibrated, then emitted a soft ping. Temporal anomaly detected. Chronoresonance match, 97%. The symbols weren't carved in the past by some lost civilization. They were left, by a future traveler. Possibly even from her own lab. Suddenly, the orb emitted a low hum and floated gently out of her pack, hovering near one of the deeper carvings. It projected a thin beam of blue light, scanning a precise point on the wall. With a crackling sound, the stone shifted, revealing a narrow corridor behind it, dark, curved, almost like a tunnel inside the roots of time itself. Elara hesitated only a moment before stepping inside. The corridor was smooth and warm, as if alive. Patterns danced faintly along its surface, constellations, DNA strands, orbital diagrams. A living chronicle of both ancient Earth and future possibilities. As she moved deeper, whispers began to rise. Not voices exactly, but layered memories, echoes of footsteps, distant laughter, the clang of machinery, even the thunder of dinosaurs. She was walking not just through space, but through the memory of time. Suddenly, the whispers coalesced into a single sound, like a heartbeat. A slow, deliberate thump that vibrated through her bones. At the tunnel's end, she stepped into a chamber. Suspended in the center was a massive, dormant structure, half organic, half metal. It pulsed faintly in rhythm with the heartbeat sound. Her breath caught. It was a time seed, a mythological concept theorized but never proven. A device meant to plant knowledge across time, buried like a seed and left to grow in secret until the right mind discovered it. And somehow, the jungle had hidden it for millions of years. Elara approached, palms out. The moment she touched it, the orb responded, fusing with the structure. Symbols on the walls lit up in sequence, and a holographic map bloomed in the air, depicting not just Earth, but alternate timelines branching outward like roots. One of the branches glowed red. A branch where the dinosaurs didn't vanish, but evolved. And they were still here. Watching. Learning. Waiting. Elara stepped back, heart pounding. The raptor wasn't just hunting her. It had been guarding this. The time seed had protectors. And she had just triggered its awakening. To be continued. The guardians of the seed. Elara stood frozen in the glow of the holographic map, her breath shallow as realization swept over her like a wave. The red branch timeline shimmered with possibilities, evolutionary paths never walked, histories never known. And here, at its center, pulsed the time seed, cradled in silence and shadows for millions of years. Then, behind her. A soft rustle. A low click. A presence. She turned slowly. Emerging from the tunnel was not a predator in the traditional sense. This raptor was larger than the one before. Taller, sleeker, adorned with what looked like woven vines and small iridescent stones across its forelimbs and neck. Its feathers shimmered in the orb's ambient glow, and in its intelligent eyes, Elara saw neither hunger nor rage, but recognition. The creature tilted its head. A slow, precise movement. Then it did something Elara couldn't believe, it bowed. Elara blinked. "You understand me?" The raptor let out a low, melodic trill. From the tunnel behind it, two more emerged, smaller, similarly adorned. One held something in its claw, a circular medallion made of obsidian and embedded with what looked like a microcircuit. They were not mere animals. They were guardians, the evolved stewards of the time seed. Her mind raced. What kind of evolutionary leap had these creatures undergone? Could some catastrophe in the alternate timeline have sparked a rapid advancement? Or had the time seed itself influenced them, nurturing not just knowledge, but purpose? The lead guardian approached, slowly, and extended a claw with surprising gentleness. Elara offered her hand. Their fingertips brushed. And in that instant, the orb flashed. Images rushed through her like a dream collapsing into a moment, cities grown in trees, dinosaur philosophers, machines that lived in harmony with the land, a society that had risen beneath the very jungles she thought were empty of reason. They had not disappeared, they had merely diverged. And now, they had waited for her. The raptor placed the obsidian medallion gently around her neck. The stone warmed against her skin, and the orb buzzed in approval. Suddenly, the ground trembled, a low rumble shaking dust from the tunnel walls. Elara glanced back toward the chamber entrance. A quake? But no, not a natural one. From the holographic map, a timeline flickered, fading at the edges. The red branch, their branch, was collapsing. Time was running out. The time seed wasn't just a gift. It was a key, and Elara had just been given access to unlock its power. But she wasn't the only one seeking it. The guardians trilled again, motioning toward a staircase now unfolding behind the seed, one that led upward into the roots of the canopy, toward the temporal canopy, a mythical bridge between timelines. The choice was clear. She took a deep breath, tightened the medallion around her neck, and followed the guardians into the unknown. Somewhere in the canopy of time, her answers, and the fate of two worlds, awaited. To be continued. The temporal canopy. The staircase spiraled upward like the inside of a living tree, its steps made not of stone or metal, but of interwoven vines that glowed faintly under Elara's boots. Each footfall sent soft pulses of light rippling upward, as if the staircase itself was alive, responding, welcoming. The air grew warmer as she ascended, rich with the scent of earth and something else, like ozone after a storm. Behind her, the raptor guardians climbed with an eerie grace, their eyes scanning the tunnel's ceiling, as though they knew more than they had shared. Above, the glow intensified. The staircase finally opened into a vast chamber, circular, with a high domed canopy of translucent crystal woven with bioluminescent threads. It looked like the night sky had collapsed and taken root. In the center stood a tall structure, an arch made of fossilized wood and strands of pulsing silver. It hummed with a deep resonance, almost like a heartbeat. Hanging at its apex was an object unlike anything Elara had ever seen, a seed-shaped device of shimmering glass and orbiting rings of soft light. The temporal canopy. The guardians halted at the threshold, trilling softly. Elara approached the arch, and as she did, the obsidian medallion at her neck vibrated. The arch responded, light ran down its sides like water. A voice echoed inside her mind, not spoken but felt. You are the hinge. The seed opens for the one who remembers the old and dreams the new. Elara gasped as her vision blurred, then sharpened. Around her, timelines unfolded like scrolls of silk. She saw herself as a child stargazing from her rooftop. She saw an Earth where dinosaurs built temples of logic and gardens of time. She saw her parents, smiling at a young girl holding her first telescope. She saw the raptor civilization, falling, rising, choosing peace. Then, something else. A breach. A cold timeline. Mechanical, gray. A future stripped of biology, dominated by synthetic minds that harvested temporal energy like crops. They had found the rift. They were coming. And she, Elara, was the last to stand between memory and oblivion. The canopy pulsed again. Its seed opened, revealing a core of flowing code, ancient and alive. The medallion lifted from her chest, levitating into the canopy's core. The entire chamber shimmered, responding to her presence. She wasn't just a traveler anymore. She was chosen to become the time-binder, a bridge between eras, entrusted with awakening the dormant timelines, protecting what had been forgotten, and guiding what could still be. Behind her, the guardians knelt. The arch flashed. Elara stepped into the light. And the canopy responded, not with silence, but with a voice older than history. Welcome, sleep scientist. The forest remembers you. To be continued. The murmuring marshes. As dawn stretched across the ancient sky like a sleepy yawn, Arlo and Dr. Nia approached a land unlike any they had seen before. The trees here bowed low over quiet pools of silver-green water, and the air was thick with mist that drifted like dreams. This was the Murmuring Marshes, a place whispered about even in the oldest dinosaur stories. The moment they stepped onto the soft, spongy earth, the marsh seemed to sigh beneath their feet. Each puddle shimmered gently, as if reflecting not just their faces, but their thoughts, too. The air was filled with gentle sounds, ripples, rustles, and a quiet hum that seemed to rise from the ground itself. Dr. Nia held up her journal, the pages already damp with mist. This area, she whispered, is said to hold the memories of ancient creatures. If we listen closely, we might hear their stories. Arlo crouched by the edge of a pool. The surface rippled, and then, a shape appeared. A gentle, gliding creature swam through the reflections, its long neck curving gracefully like a swan's. It was an elasmosaurus, a water-dwelling reptile with kind eyes and smooth movements. But as Arlo leaned closer, he realized it wasn't really there, only a memory, or perhaps a dream. Suddenly, the whispering grew clearer. The marsh began to speak, not in words, but in feelings. Arlo and Dr. Nia felt a wave of comfort, as if the ancient earth was wrapping them in its arms. They felt the warmth of ancient sun, the cool splash of a prehistoric stream, and the laughter of baby dinosaurs playing beneath ferns. They followed the sound to a small hill in the center of the marsh. There, surrounded by cattails and lily pads, stood a glowing stone, smooth as glass, humming softly. It's a memory core, Nia said in awe. Formed when the dreams of ancient beings settle in one place for thousands of years. They say it holds echoes of moments that mattered. When Arlo touched it, he didn't see images, but felt them, the love of a mother dinosaur for her eggs, the thrill of a young triceratops running through the rain, the sorrow of a lost migration, the joy of a herd reunited. The marsh grew still, as if grateful to be remembered. As they left, the mist swirled around them gently, parting like curtains to reveal the path ahead. The marsh didn't murmur anymore, it sang, in a way only dreamers could hear. And as Arlo looked back, he knew he would carry the stories of the murmuring marshes with him, tucked safely in his heart like a lullaby from the land before time. The Sky Nest. The trail beyond the murmuring marshes led Arlo and Dr. Nia to a ridge so steep it disappeared into clouds. The air grew thinner as they climbed, cool and crisp like the breath of the stars. Above them, circling like whispers on the wind, were shadows, graceful, wide-winged shapes riding the currents. "Look," Dr. Nia said softly, adjusting her lens. "Pteranodons. This is a nesting cliff. We must be close to the Sky Nest." The sky pulsed with a pale golden light, the sun filtered through mist. Their path narrowed to a ledge, and suddenly, they saw it, an enormous platform of woven branches, vines, and bones, perched on the edge of a precipice. It was as wide as a meadow, anchored in the crags by ancient roots and softened with feathers that shimmered like moonlight. A young pteranodon, its wings still soft and dappled with fuzz, peeked from the edge of the nest. It made a sound like wind chimes swaying in the breeze. The moment it saw Arlo, it blinked curiously, then flapped its little wings, sending a swirl of dust into the air. "They live so close to the stars," Arlo whispered, amazed. Dr. Nia smiled. "That's why they dream in sky colors." High above, adult pteranodons returned in sweeping arcs, gliding silently. They carried bundles in their beaks, strands of glowing moss, pebbles shaped like moons, and sprigs of silver-leafed herbs. Offerings for the Sky Nest. They weren't just nesting, they were building something sacred. Something ancient. Suddenly, a soft tone rang out, like a bell echoing through the clouds. The baby pteranodon lifted its head and chirped. The adults responded, forming a spiral in the air, their wings creating a breeze that swept around the ledge. In the middle of the nest, something shimmered into view, a luminous egg, faintly pulsing with golden light. "It's not ordinary," Nia breathed. "That egg holds a dream." Arlo stepped closer, feeling his heart beat in rhythm with the egg's glow. The time lantern in his satchel pulsed softly in response. The baby pteranodon nudged Arlo gently with its beak. Then it stepped aside. Arlo and Dr. Nia knelt beside the egg, hands on its warm surface. Images filled their minds, a vision of the skies long ago, dinosaurs migrating through the clouds, and stars forming patterns known only to the creatures of flight. The egg whispered, "The sky remembers." As twilight painted the cliff in lavender and rose, Arlo and Nia left the nest in peace. Behind them, the spiral of pteranodons soared in silence, guarding their ancient cradle. The sky, it seemed, had its own memory, woven not in pages or pixels, but in feathers and wind. And in the hush of that mountaintop, the dream of flight was still alive. The hollow beneath the roar. The echo of wings slowly faded behind them as Arlo and Dr. Nia descended the misty cliffs. The world below grew denser, darker, and cooler, until they stood before a chasm so wide it seemed to divide time itself. From its depths came a low, thunderous rumble, not of machines, nor storms, but something deeper, like the breath of the earth. A wooden bridge, old but sturdy, stretched across the divide. As they stepped onto it, ropes creaked and planks moaned beneath their feet. Below, far below, a river of glowing magma pulsed with ancient heat. "Why is it called the hollow beneath the roar?" Arlo asked, gripping the rope rails tightly. Dr. Nia didn't answer at first. Instead, she closed her eyes and listened. And there it was. A roar, deep, resonant, and not quite animal. It was like the planet itself was groaning in its sleep. "It's not just sound," she whispered. "It's memory." They reached the other side and entered a cavern that shimmered with amber light. Inside, the air was warm and still, scented with iron and ash. The walls were carved with ancient drawings, not by humans, but by claws. Enormous ones. Scenes unfurled before them, battles between great theropods, migrations under blood-red moons, and a moment when all the creatures turned their heads skyward, as if hearing a sound from the stars. In the center of the cave stood a massive stone monolith, etched with spiral symbols. But what drew Arlo forward was the base of the stone, a cluster of crystalline fossils that seemed to hum with energy. He knelt, placing his hand gently upon them. A sudden warmth spread through his fingertips. His mind swirled with visions, a Tyrannosaurus Rex standing not in fury, but stillness, as if waiting, guarding, listening. The time lantern at his hip began to flicker with violet light. Dr. Nia gasped. The fossils, they're more than remains. They're records. They store the vibrations of the past, emotions, sounds, even thoughts. Suddenly, the cavern trembled. Loose pebbles tumbled from the ceiling. A distant roar, this time real, rumbled through the hollow, shaking the monolith ever so slightly. Then, silence. Arlo looked up. Did it hear us? I think, Dr. Nia said slowly, we woke something up. The lantern dimmed to a steady pulse. The fossils glowed faintly. From the back of the chamber, a new tunnel opened. One that hadn't been there before. As if the cave itself had shifted to reveal the next step in their journey. As they walked into the newly opened path, the cavern behind them hummed, a lullaby made of time, stone, and memory. Somewhere deep below, something ancient and enormous stirred in its dreams. And the hollow kept listening. The garden of vanished time. The tunnel wound downward in a slow spiral, lit by the soft violet glow of the time lantern. Each step Arlo and Dr. Nia took felt like sinking deeper into the folds of a memory not their own. The walls pulsed faintly, veins of crystal running through the stone like lifelines of the earth, each humming a note in a song only the planet remembered. As they emerged from the tunnel, the air changed. It smelled not of rock or dust, but of blooming flowers, rain-soaked moss, and something achingly familiar, sunlight through green leaves, even though no sun was visible. They had entered a hidden biome, the garden of vanished time. Stretching out before them was a lush valley cradled by sheer cliffs, cloaked in mists that glowed faintly with silver light. Giant cycads and flowering plants swayed in a breeze that didn't exist, and butterflies the size of hawks drifted lazily from bloom to bloom. The sky was a ceiling of translucent crystal, through which glimmered constellations from a forgotten era. But it was the silence that captured them most. It wasn't empty, but full, like the quiet of a dream where every leaf and petal held a memory. This place, Dr. Nia breathed, it's like a moment that got lost. Arlo stepped onto the soft grass, and the earth responded with a hum beneath his boots. He felt light, as if gravity itself was gentler here. He wandered forward and gasped as he saw it. A dinosaur, no bigger than a deer, translucent and shimmering, like moonlight woven into form. It walked through the garden calmly, leaving no mark on the ground. When it paused and looked at him, Arlo didn't feel fear, only connection. It's not alive, Nia whispered beside him. It's memory made visible. More figures emerged. A herd of glimmering hadrosaurs, a mother stegosaurus with her young, all moving slowly through the meadow as if the past hadn't ended, it had simply come here to rest. The time lantern pulsed, warm and steady. And then, in the center of the garden, they found it, an ancient pedestal shaped like a blooming flower. Nestled within was a metallic seed, inscribed with the same spirals they had seen in the cave before. Nia knelt and read softly, translating from the forgotten glyphs. To those who listen, the garden remembers. To those who forget, the garden waits. Arlo reached out and touched the seed. The world blinked. Visions filled his senses, dinosaurs not as monsters, but as caretakers. Watchers. Creatures who felt the rhythm of the stars, who sensed when time itself shifted. They were keepers of the earth's heartbeat, living alongside it, not above it. Then the vision faded, and only the garden remained, peaceful and still. Arlo looked at Nia. This place, it's showing us that the past isn't just behind us. It's beside us. Waiting. She nodded. And maybe, in remembering, we bring it back to life. They left the seed untouched, for it wasn't meant to be taken, only understood. As they walked deeper into the valley, the glowing creatures walked with them, fading slowly into mist as they moved forward, toward whatever lay beyond the garden of vanished time. The mirror pools of memory. As Arlo and Dr. Nia stepped beyond the flowering meadows of the garden of vanished time, the terrain changed once more. The grass gave way to smooth, glistening stones, cool beneath their feet and veined with faint streaks of gold and silver. In the distance, the garden narrowed into a hidden canyon, and there, nestled in the shadows of ancient ferns and vine-laced trees, they found them. The mirror pools. Dozens of shallow, perfectly round pools shimmered in the valley floor, each one still as glass. No ripples, no wind, no sound, just an eerie calm, like the surface of a dream not yet disturbed. The pools reflected not the sky above, but something else entirely. When Arlo leaned over the first pool, his breath caught. He didn't see his own face. Instead, he saw a small herd of dinosaurs, peaceful herbivores moving through a sunrise-lit field, their scales dappled with dew. A young triceratops nuzzled its mother. A distant volcano rumbled gently in the background, not in anger but in ancient rhythm. When Nia knelt beside a second pool, she gasped too. I'm seeing the earth before humans. Before cities. Before names. Each pool, they realized, was a living window into a moment of the planet's memory. As the time lantern glowed softly beside them, the light shimmered across the pools, and more visions began to rise, like bubbles from the deep. One showed a gentle sauropod bathing its neck in a warm lake, steam rising around it as tiny pterosaurs fluttered overhead. Another revealed a stormy sea, and a pod of ichthyosaurs leaping through rain and lightning, joyful even in the chaos. But one pool was different. It was cracked around the edges, its waters dark and troubled. As Arlo approached it, the reflection shifted into a swirl of shadows, roaring fire, stampeding creatures, and a meteor burning like a second sun. He staggered back. That's the end, the extinction. Nia touched his arm. But look again. He did. And just beneath the destruction, another vision emerged. A seed drifting through ash. A small bird taking flight. Green sprouting through gray. Hope. The mirror pools weren't just memories. They were lessons. Each one whispered of survival, of balance, of beginnings that followed endings. The earth remembers, Nia said softly. And it's showing us not just what happened, but why it mattered. As they stood amidst the pools, the mist shifted, and a path revealed itself, one lined with glowing mushrooms and fossils frozen mid-motion, guiding them onward. Arlo looked one last time into the clearest pool. And this time, he saw himself. But older. Standing at the edge of a cliff with a group of children, pointing toward a sky filled with stars, and something that looked like a flying sauropod made of light. He blinked. It was gone. But the feeling remained. The future was still being written. And somewhere ahead, the time lantern still glowed, ready to guide them to the next page of the Earth's ancient dream. The Cave of Celestial Bones. As twilight descended over the jungle canopy, a quiet hush swept through the prehistoric world. The trees swayed gently in the evening breeze, their wide leaves rustling like paper secrets, while glowing fireflies wove golden threads through the darkening forest. The time lantern pulsed with a low, silvery hum, its light pointing toward a low rise nestled between two hills veiled in moss. There, hidden by draping vines and flowering ivy, lay the Cave of Celestial Bones. The entrance was narrow and triangular, shaped like an arrowhead pointing toward the stars. Arlo hesitated. There was something ancient about this place, older even than the dinosaurs they had met. As Nia raised the time lantern, its light flickered in response, casting shimmering patterns on the walls like drifting galaxies. They stepped inside. The air within the cave was cool and heavy, as though time itself had thickened. Stalactites glistened above like frozen stars, and the floor sparkled with dust so fine it glowed with every footstep, like moonlight ground into sand. And there, in the center of the cavern, they found them. Bones. But not ordinary ones. These were enormous, curved, and luminous, fossils that shimmered faintly with hues of violet and silver, as if the very sky had been woven into them. Some were as long as buses. Others, delicate as bird wings. None matched any dinosaur they had ever seen in books or fossil records. "They're celestial," Nia whispered. Almost as if they were never fully of this earth. The time lantern pulsed again. A beam of light shot upward and hit the cave ceiling, where an ancient mural came to life, drawn in glowing minerals and etched into stone with painstaking care. The mural showed a sky filled with falling stars. But as the stars touched the earth, they turned into beings, long-necked and winged, some glowing, others transparent like mist. These creatures mingled with the earth's dinosaurs, guiding them, dancing beside them, even whispering into their ears. One figure in the mural held something familiar. A lantern. Nia stepped closer. I think these creatures were travelers. From elsewhere. And the time lantern was a gift. Left behind, for someone who could follow. Arlo looked at the bones again. They weren't fossils, not in the way the world understood them. They were memories made solid, traces of life that had crossed boundaries, between worlds, between dimensions, between time itself. Suddenly, the bones began to hum. Low at first, then growing gently in volume. Not menacing, but melodic. It was a song, one without words but filled with emotion, longing, wisdom, and a quiet urgency. A voice from the past and beyond, calling to them. And in that moment, Arlo felt it. The mission wasn't just about discovering dinosaurs. It was about understanding their place in a much greater story, a story where time loops, where stars whisper, and where extinction might not be the end, but a transformation. As they turned to leave the cave, the bones glowed one last time, and then faded gently into the earth. The message was clear. Some truths can only be found when you're quiet enough to listen. The sky lake and the feathered trail. The jungle whispered secrets beneath the starlit sky. As Arlo and Nia emerged from the cave of celestial bones, the time lantern in Nia's hands glowed a soft periwinkle, casting dreamlike shadows across the leaf-laced forest path. The air felt lighter, as if the cave had opened a doorway, not just in time, but in awareness. That night, they followed a sound. It wasn't the call of a dinosaur or the rustle of leaves, but something higher, a delicate, echoing note that drifted down like a lullaby from above. They moved quietly, guided by moonlight and curiosity, until they reached a clearing wrapped in mist. And there, hidden between ancient stone arches and flowering vines, was a lake like no other. Its surface wasn't just water, it was glassy and mirrored the stars perfectly, as if the heavens had folded themselves gently into its depths. Every ripple seemed to hum with light. The lake looked less like part of the earth and more like a memory of the sky, held gently in a bowl of stone. The sky lake, Nia whispered. I read about it, but I thought it was only legend. Floating above the lake's surface were clusters of glowing feathers, soft, radiant, and drifting in slow circles like snowflakes caught in a timeless breeze. Arlo reached out toward one. As he touched it, the feather disintegrated into light, and for a moment, he saw images. A flock of feathered dinosaurs, graceful, vibrant, intelligent, leaping from treetop to treetop under a sky filled with twin moons. They were not fleeing. They were migrating. Following a trail. A trail only the sky lake could reveal. Suddenly, the water began to shift. Not violently, but like a curtain parting. An image shimmered on the surface, a glowing map, marked with strange constellations, lines of flight, and one single path leading northward, over mountains draped in cloud and mist. The time lantern responded immediately. Its color deepened to sapphire, and a tiny orb of light floated above it, a feathered spark, spinning gently, beckoning them to follow. "It's showing us the way," Nia breathed. "But where?" Arlo asked. "Where the last of them may have gone," Nia replied. "The ones who followed the stars instead of the soil. The ones who didn't die, but transformed." As they prepared to leave the lake, they noticed something else, a set of tracks in the soft mossy earth. Three-toed prints, but with a faint feathered texture at the heel. Not fossilized. Not old. Fresh. Someone, or something, had visited the sky lake just before them. And they weren't far ahead. With the jungle darkening behind them and the time lantern's light dancing ahead, they stepped into the forest again. But this time, the air seemed alive with possibility. Because now, they weren't just following history. They were part of it. The wind that spoke in whistles. The path beyond the sky lake was veiled in a silver fog that clung to the trees like silk. Leaves dripped with dew, and the forest floor was quiet except for the hushed crunch of Arlo and Nia's boots. The time lantern pulsed a soft blue as if humming along with the silence. But soon, the silence changed. It wasn't broken, exactly, rather, something slipped into it. A sound, barely there at first. A high-pitched, whispering whistle, like wind curling through hollow reeds, growing clearer with every step they took. "Do you hear that?" Nia asked, tilting her head. Arlo nodded. "It's like, the wind is singing." They followed it. The sound guided them through the trees until they reached a steep hill wrapped in curling vines and mushroom clusters that glowed faintly under the lantern's light. At the top, the forest opened into a rocky ledge overlooking a deep valley carved between cliffs. And there, carried by the valley's breath, the whistling grew into music. But it wasn't natural. The tone shifted in patterns, repeating in rhythms. Some calls rose like questions, others fell like answers. It was language, a song encoded in air. Nia quickly opened her journal and scribbled down the tones. "This is no ordinary wind," she murmured. "It's communication." Suddenly, the lantern brightened, casting beams toward the cliffs below. In the stone wall far across the valley was a shape, a spiral carved into the rock. Around it, smaller grooves, like musical notations, spiraled outward. "The spiral choir," Nia breathed. According to ancient scrolls, the spiral choir was thought to be a natural phenomenon, an echo chamber where wind, when passing through dinosaur-made structures, could carry long-distance messages like a flute. But this spiral wasn't made by time and weather. It was sculpted, intentionally. Arlo narrowed his eyes. "Someone built this, to send messages through the wind?" Nia nodded. "Or to remember one." Suddenly, a deeper note whirled through the air, clear and low, like a flute carved from bone. The time lantern flickered, and the echo of a shape appeared in its glow. A Kaihongjuji, a rainbow-feathered dinosaur with a crest shaped like a tuning fork, standing on the edge of the spiral. It opened its jaws, but instead of a roar, it sang. And for a moment, the wind carried words, not in any language spoken by humans, but felt deep inside their hearts. "We remembered the stars. We remembered the songs. We are not gone, only moved." Arlo and Nia stood motionless, wrapped in the music. Then the wind shifted, carrying a final note northward, toward distant mountains painted in twilight and veiled in drifting snow. The message was clear: the journey wasn't over. In fact, it was only now beginning to lift into the sky. The dinosaur who painted the ice. The morning after the spiral choir's wind song, the forest was blanketed in soft fog, and the world felt like a page waiting to be written on. Arlo and Nia woke beside the now quiet time lantern, wrapped in their sleeping rolls under the tallest tree they had ever seen, its trunk wider than a ship and bark glowing faintly blue from the lantern's presence. Their path was pulling them north, toward the snow-capped peaks where the air shimmered with unseen energy and the whispers of ancient things stirred behind the clouds. As they climbed the mountain trail, their breath turned to mist and the silence thickened like a snowfall. The time lantern pulsed again, not blue this time, but soft white, like moonlight falling on snow. Suddenly, they saw it. Etched into the icy cliffs of the pass ahead was a mural, massive and faint, but unmistakable. It spanned the entire face of the stone, brushed in streaks of mineral pigment and frozen sap. The mural shimmered in the frostlight, as if dusted with stardust. It showed a dinosaur, but unlike any they had seen in their journals. This one had thick, shaggy feathers, long forelimbs tipped with claws like sculptor's tools, and a beak that resembled both a bird's and an artist's brush. It stood before a vast cave, painting the stone with its claws, surrounded by younger dinosaurs who watched in reverent silence. Nia pressed her hand to the stone and whispered, "This was a memory, someone recorded this moment so it wouldn't be lost." Beneath the mural was a spiral symbol again, the same as in the spiral choir, and a row of dots carved beneath it, like punctuation marks in a language of ice. The wind shifted, and a soft humming began, carried through a hollow just ahead. They followed it through an icy tunnel, stepping slowly as frost crystals bloomed on their boots. The humming grew louder, richer, more layered. It sounded like chimes made of snowflakes. At the tunnel's heart, they found a cavern of frozen light. Inside was a glacial dome where stalactites sparkled like glass stars. And standing in the center, frozen in perfect stillness, was the shape of the painting dinosaur, preserved in time. Around its feet, the ice held fossils of brushes, stones of different colors, carved flutes, and a pattern of footprints that danced in circles like rituals or dances. Nia knelt beside the dinosaur and touched the ice. The time lantern shimmered, then projected an illusion, not of a battle or a fall, but of a celebration. The dinosaur had been an elder, an artist, and a keeper of memory. Its paintings told the story of comets, migrations, sky maps, and the teachings of the stars. It had once taught the others how to turn snow into pigment and frost into canvas. The murals were not art, they were messages to the future. And one message blinked now, across the cavern wall. "We are waiting in the place where fire meets sky." Arlo looked to Nia. "The volcanoes," he whispered. "Yes," she replied. "That's where they went. That's where the last clue waits." And so, with the mountain's wisdom behind them and the echoes of art still glowing in their minds, they stepped out of the cave and began the long trek toward the firelit horizon. The Skyfire Path. The journey to the volcanic lands began beneath a sky tinged with gold. Arlo and Nia walked in silence, each carrying the memory of the painting dinosaur like a delicate song pressed between the pages of their thoughts. The time lantern hung quietly between them, still glowing with the white light of the ice cavern. But with each step southward, its hue shifted, first to soft amber, then to a warm, flickering orange, like a tiny flame that remembered something long forgotten. Days passed gently. The forests thinned, and the earth began to change, rocks turned darker, soil warmer beneath their boots. Steam rose from cracks in the ground like whispers from deep below. The air tasted faintly of minerals and memory, like something ancient breathing just beneath the surface. Then, one night, the sky caught fire. They stood on the edge of a ridge and saw it, a glowing river of lava weaving between the mountains far ahead, sending sparks into the sky like fireflies. But it wasn't just fire, they saw something stranger. In the clouds above the volcano, lights shimmered and danced, not like lightning, but like messages written in flame and wind. The time lantern pulsed, bright and urgent. As they approached the volcanic pass, a deep, rhythmic sound began to pulse in the earth, thump, 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 like the slow heartbeat of something enormous and unseen. Then came the smell, rich, smoky, and ancient. The scent of ash and time. That's when they met the eruption keepers. Out from the rock stepped a group of dinosaurs unlike any they'd seen before. They were massive, with thick hides marked in swirling volcanic patterns. Their horns glowed faintly red, like they had walked straight from the center of the earth. But their eyes, oh, their eyes were soft, glowing pools of understanding, like they remembered everything that had ever burned. One of the keepers approached. It bowed its head and tapped its horn gently to the time lantern. A pulse passed between them, and suddenly the volcano ahead shimmered not with danger, but with invitation. They weren't here to run from fire. They were meant to enter it. The keepers led them along narrow blackened paths to a hidden ledge where stone tablets lay embedded in cooled lava. Carved into the stone were constellations, not of stars, but of dinosaurs. Each figure traced a line from ancient time to the present, ending in a swirl that pointed directly to the glowing time lantern. "These are their maps," Nia whispered. "Star maps. Time maps. Instructions." One keeper gently pressed its tail into the ground, drawing a spiral with its tip. Then, lifting its heavy head, it gazed at the volcano and made a low, melodic sound that vibrated in Arlo's chest. It was a signal. Suddenly, the volcano's side cracked, not violently, but like a curtain parting, and a staircase of cooled lava revealed itself, leading downward into the chamber of fire and stars. The lantern blazed with golden light now, warm and steady. Arlo took Nia's hand. "They didn't vanish," he said. "They left a path. A final place." Nia nodded, eyes shimmering. "And it begins in the heart of fire." With courage blooming like a comet's tail in their hearts, they stepped onto the staircase, toward the final secret, glowing deep within the Earth's dreaming core. The chamber of fire and stars. The staircase wound downward in silence, as though carved not just from cooled lava, but from time itself. Each step echoed like a breath held for centuries, and the deeper Arlo and Nia descended, the warmer the air became, thick with the scent of earth and glowing minerals. The walls around them shimmered softly, lined with molten glass and tiny crystals that captured reflections of the flickering time lantern. At last, they reached the bottom. The chamber opened up like a planet's heart. It was vast and round, its ceiling lost in mist and shadow. The walls pulsed with soft veins of light, red, gold, and sapphire blue, as though the volcano remembered starlight. In the center of the chamber stood a smooth, circular platform made of obsidian and meteorite. Hovering just above it, a model of the solar system, glowing faintly, turning ever so slowly. But the planets were different. Some were missing. Others had extra rings. And orbiting one, far at the edge, was a tiny comet-shaped moon with glowing eyes carved into its face. "It's a memory," Nia whispered, stepping forward. "A memory from when Earth dreamed of other skies." As they approached the model, the time lantern floated from Arlo's hands, weightless now, and hovered above the platform. It cast a soft cone of light onto the surface, illuminating ancient glyphs etched into the black stone. The symbols moved as they watched, swirling, rearranging, almost breathing. Then, a voice. But not in words. A feeling. It flowed into them like a melody sung through lava and stars. It was the voice of the dinosaurs, not the living ones they'd met, but the vanished ones, the ancestors of ancestors. They had built this chamber. Not to escape, but to remember. They had seen what was coming, a long sleep, a world without them. And so they had passed their memory to the earth, to time, to fire, and to anyone who would listen. The glyphs brightened as the time lantern pulsed. Suddenly, the model of the solar system lit up, and with it, a series of glowing portals formed in the air. Each one showed a different time, a moment in prehistory. A baby sauropod hatching beneath ancient ferns. A herd of hadrosaurs dancing under moonlight. A great meteor falling through a twilight sky. Windows through time, Arlo breathed. Then, one portal flared brighter than the rest. Through it, they saw themselves. But not now, not here. It showed a moment in their future. They were older. Standing in a great museum beneath a life-sized replica of the comet dinosaur. Children gathered around them, wide-eyed, listening to stories. "They're showing us what matters," Nia said. "Not just what was, but what can be remembered." The time lantern sank gently into the center of the platform and melted, into light, into memory, into the stone itself. Suddenly, the chamber trembled. But not in danger. In joy. The ceiling slowly cracked open, revealing the sky, clear and star-filled above the volcano. Shooting stars streamed past like silver fish. The chamber, once hidden, was now exposed to the heavens. And all around them, the chamber of fire and stars began to sing. It was not a song of endings, but of beginnings. The sky bridge of dreams. The stars above shimmered like ancient lanterns strung across the heavens, casting silvery threads of light down into the open chamber. As Arlo and Nia stood in the middle of the celestial platform, the breeze from the night sky kissed their faces, cool, calm, and filled with a strange peace. Then it appeared. A bridge of light. Stretching from the edge of the platform into the sky, it glowed with soft, shifting colors, sapphire blue, nebula pink, and the deep gold of forgotten suns. Each step of the bridge was made not of stone, but of memory, held together by wonder, curiosity, and something older than time, dreams. Nia gasped. "This is the sky bridge. I read about it in the cave drawings. It only appears when the heart is open and the past has been honored." Arlo reached out a hand toward the first glowing step. As he touched it, a warm hum pulsed through his fingers, like a welcome. Together, they stepped onto the bridge. It didn't feel like walking. It felt like floating through a story. Beneath them, the volcano hummed with quiet joy, the glowing glyphs below slowly dimming as if nodding in thanks. Around them, constellations rearranged themselves, forming not bears and warriors, but dinosaurs, graceful brontosaurs dancing across the Milky Way, pterosaurs soaring beside the moon. The bridge led them upward, past clouds of silver mist, where time thinned and space whispered. They walked through memories, glimpses of long-lost lands, a meadow filled with triceratops nestlings, a jungle where raptors played in golden leaf fall, a mountaintop where a lone ankylosaurus watched the stars. Each memory brushed against them like soft feathers, filling their minds with emotions they couldn't quite name: joy, sorrow, gratitude, longing, and the sweet ache of things beautifully gone. And then they reached the top. It was not a place, exactly. More like a moment. There was no ground beneath their feet, only sky, and in the middle of it stood a circular window made of stardust. The final portal. It shimmered with a soft, rippling surface that reflected not just their faces, but everything they had learned. This was the heart of the time lantern. It had guided them here not to take something, but to give. To give memory. To give story. To give the past a voice in the world that was still unfolding. Nia stepped forward, her hand outstretched. The stardust flowed toward her fingertips like a curious stream. "We can't stay here," she whispered. "But we can carry it with us. All of it." Arlo nodded, eyes wide. "And tell them. All of them." With that, the window opened, light pouring outward, flooding them both with warmth and the scent of blooming ferns and summer rain. They closed their eyes. And leapt. The return beneath the ancient sky. It felt like falling into a dream. But instead of waking in their own time, Arlo and Nia opened their eyes beneath the same ancient stars. Only now, the time lantern was gone. They stood in the meadow of glowing flowers once more, the field where they had first found the lantern nestled among the ferns. But everything had changed. The wind hummed with gentle memory. The moon above was fuller, warmer. The air tasted like something had healed. Nia turned slowly, her fingertips brushing over the tall glowing stems. "Did we do it?" she whispered. Did we bring the past back into the story? Arlo didn't answer at first. He was staring up. The constellations had shifted again. High in the sky, among Orion and the Dippers, new patterns had formed, ancient shapes that hadn't been there before. A spiral of stars curled into the shape of a sleeping sauropod. Another resembled a pair of raptors chasing the moon. The dinosaurs had become constellations. Their stories now, Arlo said softly. Stories that will never be forgotten. And as if on cue, the wind brought a new sound, not wind, not rustling leaves, but music. Faint and dreamlike, as if the forest itself were singing. A few paces away, nestled between two silver-leaved trees, the shape of a creature began to emerge from the mist, Lamora, the guardian of the time lantern. Her fur glistened with stardust, her eyes full of kindness. "You have done what many could not," she said in her whispery voice. "You listened. You remembered. You did not try to take the past, but to carry it gently." She stepped closer, her tail sweeping softly behind her. Around her paws, the grass turned to starlight. Nia and Arlo felt something warm in their chests, like a fire made of memories. "But your journey is not finished," Lamora added, her gaze gentle. "One last place remains. One final echo in the story. The first dream, the oldest roar, the very beginning." She turned and nodded toward the forest. There, just beyond the trees, a glow was pulsing. It wasn't the same golden hue as the time lantern. This light was cooler, like moonlit ice or the shimmer of a comet. "The beginning of all memory," Lamora said. "The dream of dinosaurs." Then, she faded. Not disappeared, just, softly dimmed. As though she had become part of the wind, the stars, and the story itself. Nia took Arlo's hand. "Let's follow it." And together, they stepped into the glowing path, toward the final chapters of their journey beneath the ancient sky. The dream of dinosaurs. The forest had never been so quiet. Not silent, just listening. Every leaf, every branch, every shimmer of mist seemed to be holding its breath as Arlo and Nia followed the pale, silvery glow weaving between the trees. Their footsteps were silent against the mossy earth, and above them, the stars gently pulsed like the heartbeat of the sky. "This light," Nia murmured. "It's colder than the time lantern's glow. But, softer, somehow." Arlo nodded, eyes wide. Like moonlight frozen into memory. The path carried them deeper than they'd ever gone. The trees here were ancient, taller than cathedrals, older than stone. And they leaned in close, their bark covered in strange, soft symbols that seemed to hum when touched. And then, they arrived. A clearing opened before them, not wide and bright like the others, but curved like the inside of a nest, surrounded by massive fern walls and crowned by open sky. In the center floated a spiral of mist and light, slowly spinning. Within it, shapes formed and dissolved, tails, teeth, wings, eyes, all made of stardust and memory. "The dream," Nia whispered. "The very first dream," Arlo breathed. "Before time knew its own name." As they stepped closer, the mist parted, revealing a platform of glowing stone. Etched into its surface were hundreds of tiny imprints, not just footprints, but scale patterns, claw marks, even sleeping forms curled into gentle spirals. Dinosaurs. But not living ones, not ghosts either. These were something in between. Something eternal. "They're not here in body," said a new voice, one neither had heard before. A tall figure stepped from the shadows. He wore robes like folded starlight, and his face shimmered with shifting constellations. He held no lantern, no staff, just a single feather, glowing silver blue. "I am the Dream Keeper," he said. "I tend to the first memory, the one that holds all the others." He touched the spiral, and it pulsed with soft light. Before there was language, before fire, or even sky, there was dreaming. And dinosaurs were the first dreamers. Arlo and Nia stepped onto the platform. The moment their feet touched the stone, they felt it, a deep hum rising through their bones. Not sound, not vibration. A memory. A dream. They saw flashes of sauropods sleeping under stars, raptors curled beside glowing eggs, stegosauruses resting in ferns. Dreams of flying. Dreams of thunder. Dreams of change. They dreamed the world into becoming, the dream keeper said. And now, because of you, they are not forgotten. He reached out, offering the feather. This is the last memory. The dream seed. Take it to the place where light first met the forest, the nest of beginnings. Plant it, and the story will be whole. Nia took the feather. It shimmered in her hand, light as breath. Then the mist thickened, the spiral of light slowed, and the dream faded. Arlo whispered, "We're not at the end, are we?" The dream keeper smiled. "No, little dreamer. You're standing at the beginning. The nest of beginnings." The forest had changed again. After leaving the spiral of dreams, Arlo and Nia walked in reverent silence, the silver-blue feather glowing softly between them. Each step forward seemed to echo backward, through centuries, through evolution, through the soft-breathing memory of every sleeping dinosaur they had glimpsed in the dream. "I can feel it," Nia whispered. "The forest is remembering us." "No," said Arlo gently. "It's remembering with us." The time lantern, now slung between them, pulsed in quiet rhythm with the feather. Its golden light had dimmed slightly, softened as though honoring the hush of something sacred. They passed ancient trees twisted like spirals, ferns that shimmered when brushed, and soft puddles of stardust left in the footprints of the creatures who once lived here. The path narrowed, and opened again. Before them stood a hill, not tall, but wide and breathing, covered in grass that shifted in waves like the ocean. At its center was a crater, not broken but cradled, a perfect bowl of stone and root. The nest of beginnings. It pulsed gently with a light from within, not bright, but ancient, like the warm glow of a lantern left at the door of time itself. Arlo stepped toward the nest. "This is where it all began," he murmured. Nia knelt beside him, cradling the feather between her palms. As they stood together in the circle, the feather began to dissolve into the air, not as ash, but as song. A soft melody, wordless and warm, floated up around them, rising into the sky like the scent of spring rain. And the forest responded. The trees hummed. The air shimmered. And from the edge of the hill, the silhouettes of ancient dinosaurs began to appear. Not bodies. Not ghosts. But echoes, soft and glowing, shaped from memory and dream. A mother hadrosaur curled beside her child. A massive brachiosaurus craned its long neck to brush the stars. A pack of tiny compsognathuses chased fireflies between tufts of dreamgrass. Arlo and Nia watched, hearts full, eyes wide, as the nest became a museum of memory, alive and breathing, the sleeping dreams of a world that once was, and still lived on in the folds of time. The time lantern flared suddenly, not in warning, but in completion. Its glass dome now shimmered with images from their journey, the cave of glyphs, the river of echoes, the comet's breath, the spiral of dreams, all circling gently like a golden planetarium of the past. And in the center of it all, the feather. Whole again. Glimmering. Nia smiled through quiet tears. "We didn't plant it." Arlo nodded. "Because the forest already did." Then, in the stillness, a new sound arrived. A heartbeat, slow, deep, kind. Not theirs. Not the forest's. It was the earth's. Alive and listening. The feather rose from the lantern, drifted high into the air, and with a soft, silent burst of light, became a star. One that would never go out. They stood in the nest until the first hint of dawn crept into the sky. And for the first time in a long, long time, the dinosaurs slept peacefully, knowing they were remembered. The clock beneath the roots. The dawn after the nest of beginnings felt different. The light was gentler. The air, warmer. Birds with long tails and strange, ancient cries swooped silently overhead, as if they were guardians of time rather than creatures of flight. Arlo and Nia packed the time lantern with care. It had become heavier, not in weight, but in meaning. The lantern no longer just held light. It held memories. They descended from the hill, led by soft winds and curious glimmers that danced between ferns. And soon, they reached a grove unlike any other, vast, circular, and covered in roots that curled like clock hands frozen in motion. In the center of the grove, embedded in the earth, was a clock. Not metal. Not ticking. But living. A root clock, made from petrified wood and glowing stone, its arms made of twisted vines that pulsed with quiet rhythm. Around it were ancient carvings, stories of time bending, shifting, protecting. Nia whispered, "It's alive." Arlo nodded. "And it remembers every second." As they stepped closer, the time lantern began to glow again, casting warm rings of light across the face of the root clock. The vines moved in response, slowly rotating like a compass seeking direction. A voice, old as the forest, soft as dusk, echoed around them. Not words. Not language. But intention. "Will you preserve or pass?" Nia felt the meaning deep in her chest. "I think, it's asking if we'll keep what we've seen, or return it to time." Arlo placed his hand gently on the root clock's center. "We carry it forward," he said. The clock pulsed once. And the grove bloomed. All around them, glowing flowers opened, each one a memory, a dinosaur's gaze, a comet's sigh, a child's laughter echoing through time. The root clock spun once, and froze. Its arms pointed not at numbers, but at two glowing symbols carved into the earth. One was a feather. The other, a spiral. And then, like mist, like memory, the clock sank into the earth, gently disappearing beneath the roots once more. Nia looked at Arlo. "We found the forest's heart," she said. "No," Arlo replied, voice hushed with wonder. "We found its memory." The time lantern's light dimmed to a soft golden hum. And above them, for just a moment, the sky shimmered, as if time itself had exhaled. The skeleton that sang. The path beyond the root clock was silent, blanketed in moss that muted even their footsteps. Nia walked beside Arlo, the time lantern nestled between them, glowing faintly as if catching its breath after what it had revealed. The forest around them began to shift. The trees grew taller, impossibly tall, and their trunks were wrapped in thick vines that hummed, ever so softly. It wasn't wind. It wasn't animals. It was something else entirely. "Do you hear that?" Nia whispered. Arlo nodded. "It's like music." They followed the sound, deeper and deeper, until the forest opened into a hollowed cavern beneath an ancient cliff. There, half buried in glowing soil, lay the skeletal remains of a massive dinosaur, its bones gleaming like polished stone. It was a long-necked sauropod, curled gently as if asleep. And it was singing. Not with voice, but with resonance. Each rib vibrated softly, each vertebrae echoed a tone, as if the very shape of its bones had been carved by time to remember a melody. The chamber was filled with a low, harmonic hum, like the forest itself had recorded a lullaby from eons ago. Nia knelt beside the skeleton, reverently touching one of the bones. Instantly, the time lantern flared, and in a burst of golden shimmer, a vision unfolded. They saw the creature alive, towering, gentle, moving through a glowing marshland under twin moons. It was surrounded by a herd, each step of theirs creating ripples in water and time. Then, slowly, the vision faded, the creature lay down, not in pain, but in peace. It chose this place. It chose to become part of the land. A guardian of sound. Of memory. Of music. Back in the present, Arlo sat beside Nia and simply listened. The notes the bones sang were ancient, slow and low, the kind of music you'd hear in dreams, or in the quiet between stars. "It's beautiful," Nia breathed. "It's a memory too old for words," Arlo replied. The time lantern pulsed gently, not in urgency, but in rhythm, as though it were learning the lullaby, storing it for the future. They stayed there a long while, letting the echoes wrap around them like warmth. And as they left the cave, the skeleton's final note rose into the night air, and vanished like mist at sunrise. But its melody lived on. Inside the lantern. Inside their hearts. And somewhere, inside the stars. The feathered storm. The path beyond the singing skeleton twisted through dense forest, thick with time mist and the gentle hush of ancient life. Nia held the glowing time lantern close to her chest, its light pulsing like a heartbeat, guiding them towards something new. The trees were changing. They grew smaller, thinner, their leaves turning to soft ferns that shimmered underfoot. The air smelled different too, crisp, almost electric. Somewhere above, thunder rolled gently like a tired dragon exhaling. Suddenly, a gust of wind tore through the trees. Not wind, wings. Hundreds of them. From the sky came a storm of feathers, gliding creatures swirling overhead like petals in a dance. They weren't birds, not quite. They were dinosaurs, small and lithe, covered in iridescent feathers that sparkled with hidden colors, pink, blue, gold. "Microraptors," Nia whispered. The time lantern shimmered. And time shifted. They found themselves standing in a wide, open clearing. The microraptors descended slowly around them, curious but unafraid, like snowflakes that had learned how to breathe. One landed nearby, cocking its head, blinking at Nia with wide golden eyes. It had a message. Not words, a pattern. The microraptor hopped forward and began drawing spirals in the dirt with one claw, each swirl glowing faintly as if ignited by memory. Arlo knelt beside it and touched the earth. The glow surged up his arm and into the lantern. The vision came like a song. A time when storms swept the sky and the earth cracked open with fire. The microraptors had survived not by strength, but by dance. By memory. By learning when the wind would shift, when the thunder would sing. Their feathers held the stories of every storm they'd ever seen. And now, they were giving those stories to Nia. Feather by feather. As the wind picked up again, hundreds of microraptors rose together, spiraling into the sky like a living cloud. And from within the vortex, a single feather drifted down, gold-tipped, softly glowing. Nia caught it. And the time lantern pulsed in response, absorbing the feather's memory, capturing the rhythm of ancient skies and the soft footfalls of creatures who outdanced extinction. As the last of the microraptors vanished into the horizon, the wind calmed, and the clearing fell into silence. Only the feather remained, tucked now into the lantern's side like a quill in a storybook. Ready to write the next page. The sleep of the giants. The forest quieted after the feathered storm, as if the land itself were drawing a breath. Nia and Arlo walked through a misty grove where everything, the ferns, the fallen logs, even the air, seemed to shimmer with something older than time. The time lantern, nestled in Nia's hands, glowed with a soft golden pulse. It no longer felt like just a light, it felt like a heartbeat, like the rhythm of something vast and gentle watching over them. Up ahead, the land opened. A wide valley stretched before them, blanketed in blue fog. Trees stood like sleeping sentinels. The ground was soft and damp beneath their feet, almost like velvet moss. And then they saw them. Giants. At first, they thought they were hills. But as the fog shifted, they revealed long necks stretched to the heavens, tails coiled like rivers, and skin that shimmered faintly with starlight. Enormous sauropods, asleep in a circle like ancient guardians. They weren't just resting, they were in deep time sleep, still and sacred. Nia stepped forward slowly. "They're dreaming," she whispered. The lantern pulsed brighter, and then flickered into silver blue, a color it had never shown before. It was listening. One of the giants stirred. Its eye, half the size of a tree trunk, opened slowly. A single gleam of moonlight reflected in it, not afraid, not startled, just aware. The lantern vibrated softly, and suddenly, Nia was inside its glow. And so was the giant's dream. She saw vast plains, stretching across the planet like golden oceans. Herds of sauropods moved like waves, their songs low and deep, not like roars, but like thunderclouds humming lullabies. The world was warmer, the skies were amber, and everything breathed in rhythm. She felt it in her bones, the memory of a world where giants were not alone, where the earth pulsed gently beneath their feet, and every sunset was an ocean of stars. The dream shifted. The giants had laid themselves down in this hidden valley, long ago, sensing that their world was about to change. They did not fight it. They simply slept, keeping their memories safe, in the soil, in the roots, in time itself. And now, with Nia here, the dream was beginning to stir again. As she awoke from the vision, the great sauropod gently moved its head, lowering it toward her. It did not speak, but she understood. You carry the light. Keep the memory. The earth is still dreaming. Nia reached out and touched the creature's skin, warm, ancient, and soft like bark soaked in moonlight. The lantern captured the dream. And in its light, the Valley of Giants shimmered again, not just a place, but a story, sleeping quietly, waiting to be told. The cradle beneath the earth. After leaving the Valley of Sleeping Giants, the path twisted downward into a shaded ravine where the air grew thick with moisture and age. The ground beneath Nia and Arlo's feet changed, no longer forest floor, but smooth stone laced with fossils, as if the land itself were made from memory. The time lantern now glowed a deep blue, not the light of excitement or discovery, but the soft color of silence and reverence. It pulsed like a breath slowed by time. They descended deeper. The walls of the ravine narrowed until they reached what looked like a shimmering curtain of vines. As Nia pushed through them, a rush of warm air swept around her, carrying a scent like rain on stone and fern sap. Before them opened a vast underground cavern. It wasn't dark, bioluminescent moss clung to the ceilings like stars, and glowing fungi traced the walls in constellations. Beneath their feet, a shallow stream whispered, carving its path through time. But at the center of the cavern was what took their breath away, a nest. An enormous, circular cradle carved into the stone, filled with smooth, iridescent eggs, each the size of a small boulder. Nia gasped. Are they? Arlo stepped forward, his feathers puffed with awe. They're sleeping. Like the giants. But younger. The time lantern glowed brighter. It projected a field of silver mist, and slowly, gently, the story of the cradle unfolded before them. Millions of years ago, this cavern had been a sanctuary, a secret place where the last dinosaurs came to protect their future. Sensing the shift in the world above, the sky growing cold, the stars shifting in strange ways, the ancient ones built this chamber, and left behind their young. Not to be born then. But to be born when the world remembered them. The eggs shimmered, pulsing gently, as if in rhythm with the lantern's light. Nia stepped closer and placed her hand on the edge of the nest. A soft hum flowed through her fingers, like a lullaby in a language older than sound. And then, a single egg stirred. It didn't crack or hatch, not yet. But a warmth bloomed inside it, and a flicker of life moved beneath its shell. The lantern flickered gold. Arlo tilted his head. Did we wake them? No, Nia whispered. I think they were waiting. For us. Suddenly, the cavern trembled, not in fear, but in greeting. The moss above pulsed brighter, like stars blinking hello. And then, from the far side of the chamber, a narrow stone bridge unfurled, not built, but grown, stretching into another tunnel. The lantern's glow turned soft lavender. A new path had been revealed. Behind them, the cradle of the unborn dinosaurs pulsed gently, guarding the promise of a world not lost, just asleep. Nia took a breath, her heart full of wonder and responsibility. "We're not just discovering the past," she said softly. "We're carrying it forward." With that, she and Arlo stepped onto the bridge, the cradle behind them glowing like a constellation of dreams. The tunnel of forgotten skies. The stone bridge wound slowly upward, spiraling like the inside of a shell. As Nia and Arlo walked, the walls around them changed. What had once been smooth cavern stone now shimmered with flecks of obsidian and crystal. The time lantern cast a lavender glow, bouncing softly across the tunnel's walls, each reflection a whisper of what once was. At first, it was quiet. But as they moved deeper, sounds began to return, echoes of distant winds, soft rumbling like thunder from a long-forgotten sky, and faint chirps, not from birds, but from something much older. It was as if the tunnel itself held memories, stored in silence for millions of years. Arlo's feathers ruffled slightly. "Do you feel that?" Nia nodded. "It's like the air is, remembering." The tunnel opened into a wide, circular chamber, domed and hollow like the heart of a mountain. Above them stretched a night sky, not painted, not carved, but real. Somehow, impossibly, a window into an ancient firmament. Stars glittered, constellations long vanished from modern maps. Celestial formations Nia had only ever read about in theoretical star atlases. But the stars were not alone. Flying through them were creatures made of light, shimmering silhouettes of pterosaurs, ancient birds, and dragon-like beings with long wings and glowing eyes. They soared through the dome like dreams made real. "The skies that dinosaurs knew," whispered Nia, breath caught in wonder. This is what they saw. The time lantern pulsed, violet, silver, then gold. Its light projected an image into the air, a map, made of shifting stars. A star map from the age of the dinosaurs. Arlo squinted. "It's a path. Through time. A map, to something." Nia followed its outline, connecting constellations. To their last sanctuary. Suddenly, part of the dome above shimmered and opened like a blooming flower. A soft beam of starlight poured down upon them. In that moment, Nia heard it, not with her ears, but with her heart. A voice. Gentle. Vast. "Time is not a river," it said. "It is a circle. And the dreamers remember." The words echoed through her bones. She looked to Arlo, and in his bright eyes, she saw understanding. "We're not just traveling through time," he murmured. "We're walking through their memories." A door appeared at the edge of the chamber, tall, made of a metal that shimmered like starlight and bark. The time lantern pulsed again, brighter now, leading them forward. Before stepping through, Nia looked back one last time at the celestial dome. There, painted in light, was a single dinosaur, tall, long-necked, surrounded by stars, gazing upward. Watching. Waiting. And as the door opened, she realized. The dinosaurs hadn't disappeared. They had simply become part of the sky. She stepped through the threshold with a soft whisper, "We're coming." The garden of echoing footprints. As Nia and Arlo stepped through the silver door, the world changed once more. Gone were the dark tunnels, the stone bridges, and the ancient caverns. In their place stretched a vast, open plain bathed in the soft blue glow of perpetual twilight. Giant trees with translucent leaves swayed gently in a wind that whispered like lullabies. The sky above shimmered in soft pastels, not quite day, not quite night, like a memory caught between waking and dreaming. Before them lay a garden. But it was no ordinary garden. Instead of flowers, the ground was dotted with glowing footprints, each one preserved in soft stone, each one echoing. Some were small, three-toed prints that sparkled like stardust. Others were massive, wide impressions the size of small ponds. As Nia knelt beside one, a sound arose, a soft, rhythmic thump, like the footsteps of a long-necked sauropod moving through the jungle. "This place," Nia whispered. "It remembers every step they took." Arlo fluttered beside her, his feathers catching the twilight. "Each footprint is a memory." The time lantern hummed with warmth, and its golden light began to drift from Nia's hands. It hovered above the prints, and with a gentle flicker, brought them to life. A herd of iguanodons shimmered into view, not made of flesh, but of glowing threads, like constellations given shape. They walked in silence, their ghostly forms weaving between the trees, unaware of the visitors watching from the present. Nia stood frozen, heart full. They're still here, in time's memory. Suddenly, a new sound joined the air, deep, thunderous, and slow. The garden trembled gently beneath her boots. At the far end of the plain, an ancient silhouette emerged through the mist. A brachiosaurus. Tall as a tower. Graceful as moonlight. It moved with impossible elegance, its starlit body glowing faintly, as if made of the same threads that tied the galaxies together. Around its feet, tiny glowing ferns bloomed. The earth remembered its touch. The creature turned its immense head toward Nia, and blinked. And for one still moment, they connected. Not through language, but through memory. Through wonder. Through time. The time lantern pulsed, and the footprints beneath them shifted, not in shape, but in direction. All of them now pointed forward, leading toward a path that shimmered at the far end of the garden. Nia looked to Arlo. "We're not just following history anymore," she said softly. "We're being guided." Arlo nodded. "Something, or someone, wants us to find the truth." They began walking once more, footprints lighting beneath them with each step, soft echoes of a world long gone, but never truly lost. And as they moved into the garden's horizon, the soft voice returned, riding on wind. "Every step you take is a step they once dreamed of." The dream nest. The path of glowing footprints led Nia and Arlo deeper into the garden until the landscape began to change once more. Trees gave way to wide, open plains where tall, glowing grasses swayed in slow waves, whispering ancient secrets. Fireflies with crystal wings floated through the dusk like floating stars, guiding them as if they knew the way. The time lantern grew brighter, its golden flame flickering not with warning, but with peace. In the center of the plain, on a hill shaped like a sleeping dinosaur's back, they found it. A nest. Not just any nest. It was massive, woven from strands of fossilized vines, petrified ferns, and soft moss that glowed silver under the starlight. Inside the nest were eggs, dozens of them. Some large and round, others small and speckled. All of them shimmered faintly, as if dreams had been gently placed inside. "This is," Nia breathed, "a memory of birth." Arlo fluttered above the nest, gently landing on its edge. "The time lantern brought us here for a reason. This is where the timeline began. Where it was most tender." Nia knelt beside an egg, and as her fingertips brushed its surface, the air shimmered. The world around her blurred, time peeled away its veil. She saw a mother Maiasaura, her eyes full of love as she arranged the nest. She saw tiny hatchlings nuzzle against her scales, chirping softly as they greeted the world. More visions followed, an oviraptor carefully turning her eggs, a trudon guarding her young under moonlight, a pair of parasaurolophus singing in soft, harmonic tones as their babies took their first steps. None of them were alive in the world anymore, but here, their beginnings were eternal. Then the vision shifted. Nia stood not in the past, but the future. Children of Earth, wearing clothes she didn't recognize, played in fields of glass and green. Some held books about dinosaurs. Others sat in virtual classrooms, surrounded by holographic creatures brought back through memory and science. She saw herself, older, smiling, handing a copy of the time lantern to a young girl. And then the voice returned, soft, steady, starlit. "Every beginning echoes forever, if we choose to remember." Nia's heart swelled. The nest wasn't just a place of birth. It was a promise. A promise that the ancient world, its creatures, its beauty, its song, would never truly vanish as long as someone, somewhere, remembered them. Arlo spoke quietly beside her. We've been traveling to find what was lost, but perhaps, it was waiting to be remembered all along. The time lantern floated upward on its own, settling gently into the center of the nest. Its flame spread out, not in fire, but in light, tender and gold, wrapping each egg in a soft, dreamlike glow. And for a moment, it felt like everything was breathing again. Even the past. Even the stars. Even hope.